Welcome back to Apocalypse and Genesis. Today I thought I'd talk about a stick that reminds me of the Aries dragon, one who was known to stir up the waters fresh and salty. In a time they prayed for fresh water to rise up from the ground to replace pools of salt. The wages of pole shift are salted fields and famine. When I was growing up 70 years ago, our hero on TV was John Wayne, and my favorite movie of all was The Quiet Man, where a former boxer moves to Ireland for the quiet life, only to find the girl he's in love with is sister to the town bully, who won't pay a proper dowry to get her married off. It's a grand old comedy narrated by the town drunk, and I might be partial to it because all the DNA companies tell me my male ancestry came from Ireland before it arrived to America. So the Celtic stick there on the left is my shillelagh, and I'll thank you not to be making fun of it now. They were made of oak or blackthorn, but the design could be ancient. They were used as cudgels before the Irish became a civil lot. They helped us cross uneven terrain, control a dog, drive the cows, push aside the brush, or confront an adversary high in his spirits. Like my rattlesnake pipe with the Hercules or Nibiru avatar rising from Leo, it reminded me of cycles of time. 7 SARS of 3,600 years to return home, or 5 AHAU of 5,125 years, or 4 RAMs of 6,500 years. And now, all complete, it's time to go. When precession arrives, it's about an historic and cataclysmic crescendo of solar energy and space rocks enough to interrupt civilization in a huge way. I'll not be asking God to keep me around for the excitement, but mind you, if he's mad enough, he well might. History and ancient stones conspire to tell us the exact same cosmic realities if you're paying attention. Here you can see that Moses in the Old Testament was being used in the play as an embodiment for the end of the age, or the Most High God. We've discussed how humanity was created in the Imago Dei, in the form of an asterism of Aquarius, Phoenix, and Orologium, the ancient letter He, one called the Great Atom, with his little son to the right being called Orion. So like on the sun gate at Tiwanaku, the staff god turns the skies about when he arrives the axis. On the left, you can see at Ojuelos de Jalisco, the Native American chief on the left represents Orion, her in the Bible story. His partner Ha'aron, the dragon of the sea, is the one who brings flood when his brother brings fire. Pisces has received the insignia of Aries because when the god of life shows up, he'll be at the axis of the first of Aries. And the Bible says next time we'll be at Pegasus, unless you take Revelation 6 and 19 as referring to Sagittarius, which would be a winter event, sun at the galactic center. In the image on the right, you can see the almighty staff god is also surrounded by Saturn and Jupiter. The ancient one and his son, the upstart, if you track old images of the twin-headed eagle. It's a symbol that goes back to Byzantium and the ancient Hurrians. Between them, just now, Mars stands at the first of Aries as god of war. In the near future, Mars will have his day. You might recall the Apostle Paul standing upon the hill of Mars, just below the Athens Parthenon, saying, I come from the unknown God whom you ignorantly worship. Acts 17. You find another hint of this time in Apuleius. All hail, ye who are under the protection of the most powerful god Mars, and who are now become my faithful associates, nourished in human blood, educated among bands of men, heirs and imitators of paternal virtue. Who knows if he was Christian, Dionysian, or Mithran? But he writes of this time of Seth and Orion arguing as the dance of Venus across the path of Mars, Psyche and Cupid, he called them, though I believe the sacred wedding will be that of Zeus and Hera later this month, Dumuzi and Inanna, Jupiter and Venus. The Bactrian mask reveals the story of Horon and the serpent, Thoth and Horus, who arrived about the time Sun's vernal equinox was crossing Orion. At the last creation, around 4500 BC, the second star of Orion's belt was the home of Baal, the god with no house to call his own. Today he is expected to show up at the sign of Cetus the whale, or riding Pegasus. As to his timing, Sun crosses Orion next come June 20th. The Taurian scene is Edgar Casey's next cycle of light and darkness. My apocalyptic thought is we're about to catch a glimpse of the Trinity that John belittled as frogs. This year at the second eclipse, the horizon will have poured stars from the jug at the first of Aries towards crater at the first of Virgo. We have found stones and ceramics showing we're coming up on a time of two moons, such as figured in David Gemmel's books. I highly recommend his Echoes of the Great Song if you get the chance. It's ancient history and it's prophecy because cycles of creation repeat. A fact we forget to our peril. The double eclipse shows up in the Dune movies if you missed it. I'm thinking it will be October, but we'll see. For the next week, the moon is passing between the pillars of the universe, and I believe we have reached the time of the staff god. We've had so many signs in recent years. The Bakhtun ended in 2012. The Ahau ended in 2020. But now we await something huge to mark precession, and I'm not sure it will be as wonderful or glorious as pointed out in your Holy Writ and legends. More likely it will be contingency plan after contingency plan to cope until your time of luck run out. The Bactrians thought we might get into trouble tomorrow. They're at Saturn. The next week shows up on lots of Kudurru stones of Mesopotamia. Notice that Ningishida, the old serpent, is hiding somewhere behind the moon, Saturn, or Venus, and one of these days he blocks their view, and then the god emerges from behind it as if from a rock. Some of the stones show Saturn, some of the stones show Venus, but if I had to guess, I would say Mars should be the one obscured. That is, if the UN could let us see the sky for a day, because Mars is the one at the first of Aries, and Neptune never really counted. You can't see Poseidon with the naked eye, though if he were the oak and Athena the olive, there would be your two trees of creation the heron will fly through. At some point in the near future, the sky gets turned around. Orion and Aquarius do the dance. Jupiter and his wife Venus have their sacred marriage. The Taurian sun is slain in their passage, and in 3 days Nibiru rises to replace it. Like the Mississippians with their rattlesnake scepters, Egyptians regarded Orion as a serpent. On the other hand, Sumer regarded Aquila as the home of Etana, one gathered to heaven. A story of our going home at the seventh star, picked up by Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus. There to the right of Aquila, you have a small clay tablet with God slaying a unicorn. I believe that is a double entendre for the god about to bloody Pegasus and for Jupiter finally making it to Monoceros, but that's a sign still a year away. I included this so we can stop living with the lie that the earth began 6,000 years ago. It's civilization that begins again on the cycles of conflagration, flood, plagues, war, and famine, and it's civilization starting over that shows up in the Genesis. In blue, you have the real date for the gods manipulating human DNA. They needed earthly mitochondria to eat and breathe what's down here, and they could get it from Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo denisovans, and Homo neanderthalis. So the head gods, Father, Mother, and Son, Enki, Ninkarsag, and Marduk, picked out 14 of their own Homo sapiens birth mothers and some locals they needed for mitochondrial contributions, and they hybridized humanity into something useful, a slave species to pamper their descendants. Purposely not as long-lived, purposely not near as smart, and today their more direct descendants still show up on the bell curve at school and the list of Nobel Prize laureates. The chart is of my own checkered inheritance. The Jews might descend from an Amorite father and a Hittite mother, Ezekiel 16:45, but I descend from a caveman in Liechtenstein and a Sinite woman in British Columbia, neither of which was anywhere near Eden 6,000 years ago. Here you can see the poles about to switch their headings. Our ancestors thought we'd be living with an unstable planet for 3.5 years. Perihelion for the closest object. Also, here's a poem about the Shillelagh. The reason I referred to the Lord of the Earth, the literal meaning of Enki, as the Shillelagh of God is that he's tied to the cycles. Let's say his son punishes us with the plagues of the 7 SARS. Humanity still gets to endure 4 burnings, 5 floods, and 16 battles with demons. Proverbs 13:24 says, "He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently." The Lion King holds 2 staffs upside down, meaning I think that Pegasus gets busy later in the year unless the world reverses quickly. The reason that reading stones is difficult is that you can end up with multiple meanings. Imagery can be as misleading as awkward foreign texts thousands of years old. What I do know is that you and I are in trouble. The nobility, Illuminati, secret societies, etc., for 6,000 years have been planning their coming out party, and it's all about instant tyranny, whether you're religious or secular. And they've been slowly introducing it to us, making us increasingly numb to violence and crime or the degradation of our rights, with inflation rising faster than taxes and racism and sexism and economic warfare by 1,000 cuts. So before we see the signs of heaven, experience apocalypse in Genesis, and remake civilization, we shall have a religious and economic world war because that's what makes our ancient bosses happy. Round up the gold, it's 1933 again. Shema bless you and keep you now and forever. Take care.